fellow councillors, the CEO, staff, and all the people in the gallery here, those viewing online to our regular monthly meeting of the Mansfield Shire Council this evening. I'll call on each councillor to confirm verbally that they can see all councillors and hear the proceedings. Councillor Sladen.
I can hear the proceedings and see all councillors and council staff.
Thank you. Councillor Tehan.
I can hear the proceedings and see all councillors and council officers.
Thank you. And Councillor Webb.
I can hear the proceedings and see all councillors and council officers.
Thank you. I'll ask the councillors to show. I'll ask each councillor to confirm by raising their hand that they could hear each councillor's statement. Thank you. Apologies, Madam Chair.
Yeah, we have an apology from Councillor Holcomb tonight.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb's an apology. I'll read the statement of commitment. As councillors of Mansfield Shire, we are committed to ensuring our behaviour meets the standards set by the Mansfield Shire Councillor Code of Conduct and Councillor Charter. We will, at all times, faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in us by our community. Councillor Webb, would you like to read the acknowledgement of country, please?
Sure thing, Mr. Mayor. Just want to make sure that all councillors confirm their commitment first.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, councillors, I'll read your names and if you confirm your commitment, please. Councillor Tehan.
I confirm my commitment.
Councillor Sladen.
I confirm my commitment.
And Councillor Webb.
I confirm my commitment.
And I confirm my commitment. Thanks, Councillor Webb.
Our meeting is being held on the lands of the Taungurung people, and we wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners. We'd also like to pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today.
Thank you. I'll ask each councillor in turn to declare whether they have any conflicts of interest in relation to any agenda items tonight. Councillor Tehan.
No conflicts of interest in relation to tonight's agenda.
You, Councillor Sladen.
I have no conflicts of interest in relation to any items on today's agenda.
You, Councillor Webb.
No conflicts in relation to tonight's agenda, Mr. Mayor.
And I have no conflicts of interest in relation to the agenda tonight either. Confirmation of minutes from the last meeting. Councillor Webb.
That the minutes of the Mansfield Shire Council meetings held on the 16th of July 2024 and 6th of August 2024 be confirmed as an accurate record.
Thank you. If I've got a seconder, Councillor Sladen. Those in favour of that motion? Motion is carried. Representations tonight. We have 4 deputations for item 13.2.4. I have 2 deputations for item 13.2.6 and 1 deputation for 13.2.7. Mayor's report. Item 10 on the agenda is the Mayor's report. I'll take that as read. Councillors. Councillor Sloan.
Recommendation: the council received the Mayor's report for the period of the 16th of July 2024 to the 14th of August 2024.
Thank you. Have I got a seconder for the motion? Councillor Webb. All those in favour of that motion? Motion is carried. Item 11 is the CEO's reports from council appointed officers. The committees, the Australia Day Awards Committee has not met. The Mansfield Shire CEO Employment Matters Committee met yesterday on 19th of August 24. We have received the CEO's report and we have yet to finalise a response to her and our fellow councillors. Goulburn Murray Climate Alliance, Councillor Webb.
We meet this coming Thursday. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Hume Regional Local Government Network has not met. The Mansfield Shire Council Audit and Risk Committee will be meeting next Monday, August the 26th. The MAV, the Municipal Association of Victoria, meets this Friday. I'll be going down there at state meeting with the CEO. The Rural Councils of Victoria met in Trawool, I believe, Madam CEO, and I was an apology, so I'll let you do the briefing.
No problems. Through you, Mr. Mayor, a great range of presentations, a real focus on advocacy in advance of the next federal election. One of the highlights of the presentations was a panel with a bit of what is likely to be what the battlegrounds, as they called it, for the federal election. A presentation from the National Farmers Federation and the CEO of the Foundation for Rural and Regional Renewal. A real focus on, in particular, on investment in roads, childcare and regional health were the main topics of discussion from the forum.
Thanks, Madam CEO. Councillors, I have a recommendation for us. Councillor Webb.
The council note the verbal reports provided by councillors in relation to their representation on external committees.
Thank you. I have a seconder to that motion. Councillor Slavin, thank you. All in favour of that motion? That motion is carried. Item 12 is public question time. We have no questions from the public tonight. Item 13.1 is the Chief Executive Officer's report. Got any questions, councillors, for that item? Councillor Tehan.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to the CEO regarding waste services, which is on page 21 of her report. I note the first report where we've got FOGO included in this curbside waste collection statistics, and I was just wondering whether she might be able to outline how that is progressing and the amount of FOGO, total tonnage, is where we expected it to be, and the landfill diversion rate as well too.
Definitely. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the rollout has gone well in terms of getting the bins out there. We've had a pretty good response from community. Probably fair to say it's a little early in terms of seeing the tonnage diversion rate come down. And so I'd probably be looking at our next report to see, to start to see that being reflected in the stats there. But overall, we're pretty happy with how the rollout has gone. In comparison to the feedback we've had from other shires, we've had a very positive response from the Mansfield Shire community. So I think probably at this stage, I'd just say watch this space, because we would like to see that diversion rate come down.
Yeah, sure, thanks. Perhaps we could maybe set some targets, or have what our targets are on that in that table in the future. Might be a good guide for us.
Happy to have that included. Yeah.
Right, thanks.
Councillors, any other questions?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor. Just good to see there's no complaints lodged in the previous month, which is fantastic.
Very good.
That's all.
Councillors, I have a recommendation for us, Councillor Sladden.
The council received a note the Chief Executive Officer's report for the period July 1, 2024 to July 31, 2024.
Thank you. I've got a seconder to the motion. Councillor Webb. Anyone want to speak to that motion? against the motion, and I'll call for a vote on the motion. All those in favour? And the motion is carried. Item 13.2.1 is the Station Precinct Museum Complex. The responsible officer is the Coordinator Economic Development, Ms. Wang Tinga. Is she online, or is someone taking a delegation for that? Melissa, Ms. Crane, delegation. And the purpose of this is to seek council endorsement for the formation of a community asset committee for management of the Station Precinct Museum Complex, as outlined in the terms of reference and instrument of delegation. Councillor, have you got any questions about this? No. Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And through you, Mr. Mayor, just to ask, a note in the document, they talk about the reviewing of the success or of the committee, just as to what benchmarks or what we can put in place there to, provide a transparent review of the performance of the committee and the progress of the activation of that area as time goes on.
Thanks. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to answer that one. We have not yet established, some benchmarks or targets to report against, but that would be the aim upon formation of the committee, that we would do that and target really, some KPIs against visitation to the museum. We already record our visitation trends for the Visitor Information Centre. So we'd be looking to see an increase there. And also, I would expect some targets around a volunteer hour contribution and also financial contribution from community as well.
Okay, so that'll happen when the group is put together. It'll be one of their first items. Is that right?
Yeah, for discussion. Yeah.
Yep.
And we would report back to council in relation to their performance against those targets.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments, councillors? Councillor T. Sladden, beg your pardon.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just in relation, sorry about that. There I am. I would just like an update on the progress of the land use activity agreement. Where are we at with that?
I might throw to our general manager on that one. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly. So through you, Mr. Mayor, our notification of it's a negotiation activity under the land use activity agreement. We have provided a letter of the works, particularly the works that are being undertaken with the museum, and commenced discussions with the Tongarong. That is an ongoing process. They have given permission for the museum to start while that process is underway, but we certainly started that a while ago and we'll continue to work to find a mutually beneficial outcome.
Is there a timeline on that, Ms. Crane?
There's not a specific timeline set, but there are negotiation timeframes within the legislation that we can work through. But we'd prefer to work in a collaborative way with the Tongarong to work through that. So we have given that negotiation notification, and we'll just work to set some timeframes with them. But I can certainly get further information on timeframes for that, if you would like.
Thank you. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, just follow up. No, it's okay. Just a follow-up question. The composition of the CAC. It's an unfortunate acronym, but the Community Asset Committee. The people who make up that?
Yep.
Perhaps we can.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's included in the terms of reference.
Yes.
Draft terms of reference. Obviously for council's consideration. Also, we will need to go out to the community with that as well. It is proposed that there would be two representatives from council, one being a councillor and the other being an officer, senior officer. There would be two representatives of the Mansfield Historical Society, a Taungurung Land and Waters Council representatives and 2 community members that would be advertised. Those positions would be advertised to the community with an intention of getting a skills base or a particular interest base for the community asset committee. So there would be a
And that
completely
process
open and
will-
transparent process
Yep,
for that.
okay.
Yep.
And that process will commence as soon as 50 skips up. Yeah.
That's correct. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I might also add that we have also provided a copy of the terms of reference to our stakeholder group members and specifically to the Taungurung Land and Waters Council to ask for their feedback as well.
Thank you. That's it. Yeah.
Any other questions or in that case? Councillor Webb?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the motion that council enter into a community asset committee agreement for the Station Precinct Museum complex, as outlined in the terms of reference and instrument of delegation for a period of 10 years, together with an unlimited number of an additional 10-year agreement options. 2, provides public notification of the intention to create a community asset committee for the Station Precinct. And 3, endorses the CEO executing the community asset committee agreement on completion of the public notification process.
Thanks. And I saw Councillor Team put his hand up. So are you seconding the motion, James?
Yeah, I can. I will.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you. Does anyone want to speak to the motion? You want to speak against the motion? Oh, it's Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Might be a delay here. I don't think you probably want to speak against the motion.
No, I don't. Not this time. Just to say that this is a really important project for council. The Station Precinct.
No, there's a delay in the video, Graham. So
Can you hear me now? Are we back in
Is he
sync?
saying it?
no, I think we might have lost.
Yep.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
we're back in
Yep.
sync.
Okay. Just to say that this is an important project for council. It's been a long time coming to get this Station Precinct up and running. The formation of the committee is a good step. I'm excited to see an activation of this precinct. It's got the potential to be a really good draw card for Mansfield, specifically Mansfield Township, as a destination, which is something that we lack or don't necessarily have things in town for visitors to do. So excited to see what the future brings with this arrangement. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. Councillor T.
Yeah. Look, the committee membership, I think, was it was vital that we get that makeup right, and I'm really happy to see that it's a good balance between Shire Historical Society and the community, and a lot of this progress will depend on how well that committee functions. So it's good to see that the Historical Society have a good representation there, given that they are one of the major stakeholders there, and probably just like to acknowledge the work that they have done to bring the formation of this together. So well done.
Thanks, Councillor T. Any other councillor? Anyone want to speak against it? I'd like to speak to the motion. I'd like to endorse Councillor T's comments about that, and he's right. It will be the formation of this committee that work well together to make it successful. So I'm very much looking forward to that happening. So I'll put this motion to a vote. All those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. Item 13.2.2 is C60 planning scheme, and the responsible officer is the coordinator statutory planning, Nicole Imbling. Welcome, Nicole, to our meeting this evening. The purpose of this agenda item is to seek approval to request authorisation from the Minister for Planning to prepare an exhibit planning scheme amendment C60 MANS, which will update the settlement policy and directions for Mansfield Shire generally in accordance with the adapted Mansfield Planning Strategy 2022. So, councillors, have you got any questions for Ms. Embling? Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Embling, could you just give a very brief explanation of what happens should we pass this motion tonight? What are the next steps and what's the implementation process from here?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. So from here, the documentation that's been prepared and is included in the attachments would be provided to the Department of Transport and Planning. They will then go through a thorough review process of the amendment documents to determine an initial approval effectively to allow us then to go out for exhibition. So there's still more review of this documentation to occur by the State Department before we put it out to the general public.
No worries. Thank you, Ms. Emily.
Well, I've got a question, Ms. Emily. On page 17 in the agenda, under tree protection, you say we use the vegetation protection overlay to protect grandfather trees, which we're very happy to see. Is there a way to also acknowledge significant trees within our district, or is that not a something that will come into a planning scheme like this?
So I acknowledge that what you're looking at on page 17, I believe, was the middle column, the strategy response. That is a section that's come out of the Mansfield Planning Strategy itself as actions to be completed. The next column across does note that that is under investigation, that the protection of vegetation is not included in this planning scheme amendment. It is something that we are investigating further through alternative avenues as well, through a local law review. And through that review process, we will look as to whether or not a vegetation protection overlay would be appropriate, but I might defer to Melissa in relation to the local law review process.
Certainly, thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, there's two elements to why we haven't put additional protections in the form of an overlay through this amendment, in that the amendment the planning strategy recommended we do further work to apply the vegetation protection overlay. What the planning strategy didn't do was identify where they were. So it's really hard from the strategy we've got to be able to say we want to protect whichever trees specifically. And we can provide protection for native and exotic trees depending on their significance. So it's not protection of the tree with a vegetation protection overlay isn't specific to natives, it is specific to significant trees. We are looking at alternative forms of protection that don't require the level of strategic investment or work that we would need to do an identification. So to get something in the planning scheme, we'd need to have it identified, we would need to have it assessed. There's a whole lot of work that would go into that, whereas using the local law, we may have an ability to provide protection, adequate protection faster, with less impost in terms of cost to council to apply those protections, which is why we're exploring that as an alternative to a vegetation protection overlay within the planning scheme. But it's certainly not out of the question in the future. There would be a level of strategic work that would need to be undertaken to employ that.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that.
I'm happy to move the motion.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Sladden.
The motion is the council request under section 8A 2 and 3 of the Planning Environment Act 1987 that the Minister for Planning authorise Mansfield Shire Council to prepare Amendment C60 Mans to the Mansfield Planning Scheme and notify the Minister for Planning that when it exhibits the amendment C60 Mans, Mansfield Shire Council intends to give full notification of the amendment under Section 19 of the Act for a minimum statutory exhibition period of 1 month. And 3, when authorised by the Minister for Planning, exhibit Amendment C60 Mans to the Mansfield Planning Scheme under Section 19 of the Act.
Thank you, councillor Sladden. Have I got a seconder, councillor Team? If you'd like to speak to the motion, councillor Sladden.
Certainly. I mean, this is merely a procedural matter where we refer this to the Minister, and hopefully he and his department will not take a long time to give us permission to exhibit this amendment. But just for the for the community to please, we have no reason to believe that the Minister won't approve it. So once it does go on exhibition, it's a rather large document, and it will significantly, council believes it will improve the planning scheme. So make sure you have your say and comment on it when it is out for exhibition. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Tina, want to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, I think it's C60 is incredibly important for the future of this Shire as a whole. So, yeah, I agree with Councillor Sladden. I hope that the Minister can get it out there, get through, and so we can get it out there. And there's sort of 4 particular things that I think that it will do, which will really benefit this Shire. One of them being to help us enable to protect agricultural land in this Shire, which is incredibly significant. The fact that we would be able to go in and actually spray weeds on roadsides removes vegetation, which will significantly enhance the progress of getting rid of a lot of the weeds we have built up over the last 3 years of wet seasons in this Shire. Also the neighbourhood character, if we can strengthen that, so we can stop willy-nilly planning going ahead, and it will also enhance our ability to be able to bring in a developer contribution, which I think is it's been a long time coming, and it's good to see that that infrastructure plan is underway as it is now. So hopefully that will happen sooner rather than later. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks. Does any other councillor want to speak to or against the motion? Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just to mirror my fellow councillors' comments, this is an extremely important piece of work, and well done to the council officers, because we know how long it's taken to get it to this point. And it really is, in my view, the crystallisation of the community's opinion, this council's opinion of Mansfield Shire, particularly with the neighbourhood character statements. Hopefully it will allow us to have some backup when it comes to tricky planning decisions, and give us some backing in council when those do occur. So well done to the staff on this one too. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And I'll put that motion to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? That motion is carried. If you'll indulge me, councillors, I want to go back to 13.2.1, which is the Station Precinct Museum Complex. We unanimously approved that motion, and I'd like to recognise Auntie Bernadette and Auntie Angela, who are here tonight in a public gallery, who have had a lot to do with the activation of that area. And I'm publicly thank you very much for your attendance and everything you've done, and I hope you'll be on that committee. So sorry about not bringing it up back then. So 13.2.3, amendment of C55 Red Gum Estate, and their strategic Planning Officer is Ms. Esther Perkins, but I'm sure that she has delegated that to Ms. Embling. So the purpose, I'll read the purpose out: to provide councillors with the results of the additional notification required by the Department of Transport and Planning for Amendment C55 Mansfield, being the rezoning of land in Red Gum Drive, Mansfield, and to seek a resolution of council to adopt the amendment again. Then submit for approval to the Minister for Planning to be incorporated into the Mansfield Planning Scheme. A copy of the amendment proposed to be submitted for the approval is attached with the paper. So, councillors, over to you. Any questions for Ms. Embling? In that case, we have a Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Motion being that council, having been authorised by the Minister for Planning to prepare Amendment C55 Mans to the Mansfield Planning Scheme under Section 8A4 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. 2, having prepared and exhibited Amendment C55 Mans to the Mansfield Planning Scheme under Section 19 of the Act. 3, having considered all submissions to Amendment C55 Mans under Section 22 of the Act. 4, Mansfield Shire Council resolves to A, adopt Amendment C55 Mans to the Mansfield Planning Scheme in accordance with Section 29 of the Act without changes.
Thank you. Have I got a seconder to the motion?
Well, that's Councillor Sladen, since he proposed the first time.
Yes. Yeah. Councillor Sladen.
That's why my hand's up, Mr. Mayor.
It's difficult running a meeting like this, Paul. So would anyone like to speak to the motion? Councillor Webb.
Again, just to acknowledge the amazing work of the planning department in this amendment. It's a long slog to get through there, and you've done it. Well done.
Thank you, Councillor.
Just letting you know if there's the first signs of flood in that area, Miss Embling. Thank you.
Any councillor want to speak to or against the motion? In that case, we'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? The motion is carried. Okay. Agenda item 13.2.4. Planning permit application P001/23 446 Monkey Gully Road, Mansfield. There's 4 deputations on this agenda item tonight. I have Mr. Troy Spencer coming in online. Is Troy coming in, or is he on the?
Yep, looks like he's
start his video.
Yep, here he
Can
comes.
you hear us, Troy? If you can, Troy, welcome to our meeting tonight. You're doing a deputation on 13.2.4. If you can just state your name and do your deputation, and please don't run over 3 minutes.
No worries. My name's Troy Spencer, and I have a business named Planography over at Euroa. And I've been doing a little bit of work for a client over at Monkey Gully Road. In particular, I really just wanted to I guess, show some gratitude for the process. It's been pretty full on. There's been a few backs and forwards between our client, myself, and council and objectors. And I think everyone's sort of been really, done their part. And I think it's come to a conclusion, more or less, for us anyway, that an outcome between all parties, and I haven't experienced it at another council like this, is so well organised that we felt all the way through it, we felt as though we were being listened to and involved in the process. And I think the best thing too is that a few of us learned from it during the process about just how good communication goes a long way, and possibly if there's ever a way of being able to help people get to communicate with people before an application is made, it would be even better. But I do think that under the circumstances, we've ended up with something that can work for our client. that certainly respects the neighbourhood and would be an asset to the municipality, having someone to be able to do work on agricultural machinery and the like in the district. So I think it's a good outcome, and I just again say that I agree with the delegate report. I think the conditions suit the situation, and I really don't have much more to say than that. I think it's a job well done for everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Spencer. Councillors, have you got any questions for Mr. Spencer at all? Thanks for coming in tonight, Mr. Spencer. You're welcome to wait in the waiting room, and we'll get on with the next delegation.
Thanks for help. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you. Mr. John Eisner, welcome tonight, John. Can you do yours and then Douglas's at the same time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Straight after, not at the same time.
So yeah, straight after. Straight after yours.
Beautiful. Mr. Mayor, councillors, and staff and the audience, yeah, thank you for letting us have our say. I'm going to read firstly Doug Galbraith's submission. He can't be here tonight. He is travelling. And look, you'll be thankful that most of my thoughts reflect his, but I'll just read out what Douglas Galbraith had to say. So I should have said I'm John Eisner. I live at 97 Old Tonga Road, just a little bit down the track. And this is from Doug Galbraith at 471 Monkey Gully Road. Douglas's words: "Thank you for giving me the chance to express my thoughts regarding the assurance of a planning permit, or the issuance of a planning permit for a building and business opposite my home. The purpose of RLZ is to provide a residential use in the rural environment and to provide for agricultural use, which does not affect the amenity of the surrounding land use. All of my neighbours are of the opinion that this proposed shed and business will affect the amenity of our neighbourhood, with special regard to noise and the increased traffic and visual impact of the shed. I know there are strict rules that prohibit work from being carried out outside of the shed, but there will be a very strong temptation to carry out noisy work outside of the shed, and who is going to monitor this? I, Douglas, chose many years ago to live in a rural zone, and I'm now faced with living beside a rural industrial zone. A total and abject failure of the amenity of the original zoning. Allowing this development to go ahead amounts to what I call industrial creep. Council's own planning scheme calls for the centralisation of industry. All entrances to the beautiful township of Mansfield have industry welcoming you to Mansfield. What a shame. Pity our forefathers didn't have the vision to put industry all in one spot and out of sight so as to make Mansfield a more welcoming place. If this proposal passes, then industrial creep will creep further out of town, and we don't want or we don't need this. I have concerns regarding operating hours. For instance, hay producers can operate 20 plus hours a day, and if machinery breaks down and it needs to be repaired immediately, not tomorrow or the next day, but now. Another issue could be that could easily contravene the planning permit condition, might go something like, "Hey, you've done a great job with my hay rake, but can you service my wife's car?" The list of potential breaches of the permit and conditions could go on. Who is going to monitor these potential breaches? Council is already extremely busy, and they would struggle to monitor these breaches. Council officers have said that the applicant has met all the conditions relating to the amenity. I would beg to differ in this regard. The amenity along this tranquil section of Monkey Gully Road will be forever destroyed if this application is passed and seen through being an ongoing industrial business. Another point of concern to me is the washdown bay as indicated on the plans. It is noted on the plan as to simply meet the appropriate standard. My limited understanding of washdown bays is that they need to be at very least silt traps and triple interceptor traps. More information is needed than a simple notation on the drawing. Thank you, councillors, for listening to my objection to this planning permit application, and it is my hope that you will reject it out of hand. Douglas Galbraith, Monkey Gully Road. So there's Douglas's submission. And as I said, mine follows pretty much most of those. My concern is really the appropriate use, the industrial creep, and the amenity of an industrial application in a rural living zone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Eisner. Councillors, have you got any questions for Mr. Eisner? No questions. Thank you, John.
Thanks, councillors.
Ms. Prue Shepherd. Hi, Prue, welcome.
Evening, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I am the southern neighbour referred to in the documentation, whose boundary is 55 metres and residence is 97 metres from the proposed development. In my view, this planning application should be rejected by the council as it does not meet the requirements of the Mansfield Planning Scheme, particularly with respect to Section 11, settlement, and Section 13, amenity, human health and safety. This application does not adequately protect the amenity of residents who, under the planning scheme, have a reasonable expectation that their amenity will be protected. In particular, the concern that noise pollution is still a really very big concern for me, despite some of the achievements by planning, some of the concessions, the noise situation is still a very large concern. With respect to settlement, residents of this area, many of whom have lived in the area for decades, I'm nearly at 2 decades, next year I will be, abide by an implied social covenant, which governs the way that we treat each other and our environment. In other words, we have an established settlement there, which is expressly protected in the planning documentation. The proposed use of the land at 446 Monkey Gully Road does not fit within the character of our established settlement. It does not sufficiently respect or consider the amenity and health safety of nearby residents or afford suitable protection to the natural environment. Under Section 13.071S of the planning scheme, it is incumbent upon planning to ensure that the use or development of land is compatible with nearby uses. I ask you, how is a noisy industrial 5.8 metre, 30 metre long mega shed compatible with lifestyle properties centred around hobby farms and large gardens? In our settlement, we all occasionally make noise. However, we understand that is temporary and will pass. What the applicant is proposing here is not temporary and it won't pass. It will entitle the landowner to make noise for 55 hours per week if he wishes. Planning refers to vibrant livability as relevant in its consideration of this application. This is a concept referred to in the 2021 to 25 council plan. If the landowner, a relative newcomer to the area, is successful in his application, he will be granted vibrant livability. This, however, will be at the expense of other landowners. The livability of my property would no longer be vibrant. It would be reduced to very grey. As an avid gardener and someone who finds peace outside, I'm terrified by the thought that if I want to take my morning coffee on the veranda or in the garden, as I often do, I will need to do so with ear protection on. I also want to speak to the industrial situation. Planning has failed to implement council's stated objective to consolidate commercial and industrial activity in the industrial precincts. The rural living zone should not be considered a suitable dumping ground for businesses that are unwilling or unable to obtain land in the industrial zones. The reliance of this application on the provision which allows agricultural industry in the RLZ is tenuous, and if granted, the temptation to service non-agricultural vehicles would be great. This business is more suited to the industrial precinct where it can service whichever vehicles it pleases and where monitoring and compliance by the Shire would not be required to the same degree. There are more areas that I could touch on, but due to time limitations, I refer the councillors to the detailed written objections already submitted. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Shepherd. Any councillors, any questions? Shepherd? Thanks very much. Councillors, responsible officers, Ms. Embling, any questions? Thanks. Councillor Sladen.
Ms. Embling, just looking at the conditions that you've set on your recommendation, in relation to environmental health, the requirement for an amended LCA, land capability statement, has one not been provided already?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did receive a land capability assessment very early with the application. That recommendation in the land capability assessment was for a primary treatment system. Further assessment based on the latest wastewater guidelines that only came out in May this year now requires a secondary treatment system. And given that we were already 18 months into the application, it didn't seem reasonable to require them to get that LCA amended immediately when it was able to be assessed by Goulburn Water and our own internal environmental health team. That secondary treatment would satisfy all of the new guidelines.
So, okay, so following on from that is the Goulburn Murray water conditions that they have put upon it. Will they, I mean, those conditions, are they likely to alter with an amended LCA with a tertiary treatment plant? No?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor,
Ms.
no,
Cranes?
not at all. We've
Not at all?
been quite fortunate in the fact that our wastewater team, our environmental health team, work quite closely with Goulburn Water, and they actually have seen each other's recommended permit conditions and confirmed that Goulburn Water confirmed they were happy for council to have the final sign-off of the land capability assessment once amended as the responsible authority.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Councillor Tehan, first.
Yes, Miss Embling, Mr. Eisner and through him, Mr. Galbraith mentioned term industrial creep. Is that something that is got any bearance in the planning scheme? Can you sort of enlighten me on what industrial creep how it could affect this proposal?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. So just to make it really clear that this proposal is for an industrial type use associated with agriculture, which is permissible in the rural living zone. Interpreting the objectors' deputations and supported by their written submissions, the notation of industrial creep, I believe, is kind of talking about that snowball effect, that if something like this was to go ahead in this area, what that might lead to and what kind of precedents that might set for future development as well. Obviously, it is quite an established rural living or lifestyle area with mostly single dwellings on properties. I'm speculating, but their concerns, I believe, relate to additional industrial type uses coming into that area. And to be really clear, that anything of this nature will require a planning permit and would go through this same process. But there is certainly parameters around types of industrial uses that could be in this rural living area, and that the line is effectively that it needs to be related to agriculture. We couldn't have, or the planning scheme does not allow all industrial land uses in a rural living zone.
Okay, so if this proposal was to go ahead, that doesn't automatically open the floodgates as such to any further. Every case would have to be judged on its merits.
Certainly, and each application will be assessed on its merits, but it's probably the most important factor here is that not every industrial application could be suited in a rural living area. Most standard industrial uses can only be done in the industrial zone.
Okay, which leads me to the next question is in terms of the objectors were very concerned about breaches of this business and how it could affect them. So what will council do, given that this is a very isolated, I guess, case of a development in a rural living zone, this type of thing? What will council do to monitor to make sure that if this does go ahead, that these breaches are recognised and reported and acted upon?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. So as part of the application, a lot of the proposal incorporated these elements to reduce impact to neighbours. So there is a noise management plan, a waste management plan. The design of the building has been done in such a way to reduce noise impacts along with their hours of operation and a number of other factors. The recommended conditions that are included in the officer report do relate to putting some controls around hours, noise limitations in accordance with the EPA guidelines and things like that, which are standard amenity impacts for a use like this, regardless of whether it was in an industrial zone or the rural living zone. We do have to take every application on its merits and assume that any person will then comply with the conditions that are set by planning. If in a case that we find non-compliance, we do have an appropriate program in place to deal with non-compliance. And in the first instance, it is usually immediate contact with that person to try and achieve compliance straight away. And we might find out about that through a number of ways. One of them might be some of the neighbours letting council know. It might be through inspections and things like that. But I effectively do hope that every person that gets a planning permit does comply with every condition, because they are set for a number of reasons. And a lot of these ones have come from the application itself. So measures that the applicant has put forward to address a lot of the concerns raised by those objectors and the neighbours surrounding this property.
Thanks, Ms. Emlyn.
Councillor Webb, did you have your hand up before?
I did, but Councillor Tien took both of my questions, so all good, thank you.
Councillors, have you got any more questions?
No.
There is a recommendation before us from the planning officer, Ms. Embley. And if there is no one to move that motion, the motion will be lapsed. Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I will move the motion as written on tonight's agenda. Pages 38, 39, 40, and finishing on 41. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Webb. Have I got a seconder to the motion? There is no seconder to the motion. The motion is lapsed. We've got an alternative motion, councillors. Councillor Sladden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My motion is the council issue a notice of decision to not, to refuse a permit for planning application P01/23.
Thanks, Councillor Sladden. We've got a seconder to the motion. Councillor Tien. Anyone want to speak to that?
I will. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. Look, firstly, I would like to thank the planning team. This has not been an easy one for them, and the council has been informed along the way. with this development. The planning officers, Ms. Zembling in particular, has done tremendous work in working with the applicant. And I think we do need to acknowledge the fact that the applicant did make concessions with in terms of moving the shed and some of the other concerns that were raised by the objectors. However, Ms. Shepherd in her deputation used the expression social covenant. That's a new one on me, Ms. Shepherd, but I quite like social covenant. I've been out there, I've had a look. It is a village within a village, if you like. It is very much a rural living zone, and the type of houses that are there, the mixture of hobby farms and tranquil life, if you like. I believe that this type of development is better suited to an industrial area and not within the area, not within the location, is what I'm trying to say, of around that settlement that has been developed along Munsey Valley Road. So I know there are plenty of examples of this elsewhere around the Shire, but they are not cited within a community of interest. So therefore, hence my wanting to reject the application.
Thanks very much, Councillor Sladen. Councillor Tehan, if you want to speak to that motion?
Yeah. Look, I agree with Councillor Sladen, but I think particularly here, given the amenity, given the area, and I've had a good look at that area, I just don't think, and I don't feel that this business fits in there. There are plenty of other places where you can have a mechanical business or an agricultural repair business, but I don't think it. And some of those are in the farm zone themselves, but this is a rural living zone, and I think that's the name of it. Just pretty much describes that area really well, and I'm not satisfied that this business would be able to exist within those guidelines. So that's why I'm not supporting it.
Thanks, Councillor Tehan. I'd also like to make a comment here. When Ms. Shepherd stood up and mentioned vibrant livability, that this person would expect vibrant livability at the expense of other people. And I think that's what really brings this to mind, that it's in the wrong spot and we haven't got any control over whether they do or don't do the right thing. Can't make them pull the building down or to close their business. So it's just, I'm not in favour of it at all. I think Mansfield needs to remain country. We need to keep our eye on the ball, these sorts of things. I have been made aware, councillors, from the CEO, that there may be a governance issue here with our motion, so I'll refer to you, Madam CEO.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I might just seek some input from our planning team. It may be that we need some reasons actually stipulated in the motion. If I could just ask our General Manager, Infrastructure and Planning.
Certainly. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to councillors. A councillor, as with any application, council has every right to approve or move an alternative motion. If there is a motion or a resolution to issue a notice of decision to refuse a permit, the planning team will need grounds under which, in terms of the planning scheme, that permit is being refused. So that's so that's the difficult part of it. In terms of a notice of refusal, is certainly every right of the councillors to move. The issue is, it's on what grounds are we moving that refusal is what the council officers will need.
Hey.
Sorry, 3 minutes, Mayor.
No, you go.
if I can make a suggestion.
I can amend my
You have-
motion.
You're happy to amend?
I'm
Yep.
happy to amend.
Okay.
And I'm happy to accept and listen to that amended motion.
Are you?
Yes.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
right
Mayor.
ahead.
That's very nice of you. So, sorry. Let me go back to here. Okay, the council issue a notice of refusal. Is that correct language? Or decision to refuse? Planners, help me.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is a notice of decision to refuse a permit.
Thank you. To refuse a permit for the following reasons. One, lack of compatibility with surrounding land uses. Detriment to the amenity of the immediate surrounds. And does not contribute to council's strategy of vibrant livability for the Shire.
That's the amended version.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if we
It'll have to be seconded.
yeah, if
Yeah,
we could-
I'm going to do that.
just
Oh.
before we do that, can we just seek some feedback just from our planning team, just to confirm that that would be sufficient for the purposes of the motion?
This is a difficult position for a planning or council
Yeah.
staff to answer that
It-
question.
yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think I can.
Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
take the grounds as submitted by councillors, and that's what will be put onto the notice.
Okay, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, I could suggest alternatively, if more time was required, because I know it's always dangerous to do these things on the run. If more time was required for the planners to consider it, we could consider just adjourning that item for a period of time, and we decide on it later in the meeting. That would be an alternative. If I could ask our planning team, would that be sufficient for?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly we could take it back for further consideration. The officer recommendation based on the current proposal is to issue a notice of decision to grant a permit. We could take it back for further review. It would then need to come back to a future council meeting for a decision.
Well, I'll just say that you've put your case and we've voted to not accept that case.
Well, not yet.
Well, not yet.
Well, not yet,
Not yet.
but we're about to.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether councillors need to get in to make it so we're not voting on it, because that'll technically.
Sorry, if I could just clarify, Mr. Mayor, I'm just talking about allowing the officers some time to just properly draft up that motion as they would have with a refusal. So I think the concern from our planning team is really just providing advice on the run on the grounds. If you wanted an alternate motion to be considered, they could do that with a bit more time. It's just doing on the run is dangerous.
I take your point, Madam CEO, but given that the planning team, as mentioned by Manager Ms. Crane, they've put through a recommendation to grant the permit, whereas the amended resolution that's before, or amended motion that's before us at the moment, I believe is sufficient for council to continue to the process of voting on that.
And it's through you, Mr. Mayor, it's ultimately your call, councillors. So we're here just to give advice and support. So if my only question would be to the planning team and to our governance officer, do we have those items clearly recorded in terms of the motion? Yep. And it's ultimately up to you, to councillors, whether you'd like to take some more time. Yeah.
Okay, well,
I don't need more time, Mr Mayor.
I don't need more time either. It's very
I'm-
clear that. Sorry, James, is it?
I'm happy to second councillor Sladen's alternate motion that he proposed
Amendment.
recently, just in terms of the lack of compatibility and what was
Amenity.
it? The amenity, that's right. Yeah.
Thanks, councillor Tehan. Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That motion is carried.
Against.
All those against the motion? Thank you. The motion is carried.
Mr. Mayor, could I say a couple of words, please, just in relation to that vote?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. I obviously moved a motion, notice of decision to grant a permit, which was lapsed. I wanted to speak on my reasoning behind it and why I didn't support the most recent vote on that particular. There's a couple of reasons behind it. Firstly, as councillors, we are not planning experts. And as councillors, our role is to support the CEO to assemble a team of expert planners in order to carry out our will, in order to carry out the will of the community. I listened and I read and I heard the objectors' points of view, which made this an extremely difficult decision for me. So I wanted to talk a little bit further on my reasoning behind it. Going against a planner's recommendation is fraught with peril. While I'll acknowledge there may be a social covenant in a particular area of Mansfield Shire, there is little hard evidence to back that up in a scenario where a decision like this may go to VCAT. That's not to say that we just let things go willy-nilly. Everything needs to be considered in its own right. I personally believe that the impact on amenity may be blown out of proportion. I also personally believe that the pessimistic view on an applicant that will not comply with the points made by the planners in the agenda is a bad position to have. We have to assume the best in people. And in the event that that doesn't happen, well, then we can take appropriate action. I think it runs a risk of straying very widely into an extremely conservative position, which could prevent positive growth for the Shire. So I do understand the objectors' points of view, and I completely taken on board, and I too live in a rural living zone, and I too enjoy the peace. So I do know exactly where you're coming from. But Mr. Mayor, I just thought I'd put some points out there as to my thinking behind the decision. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Webb, and for your point of view. So that item's been dealt with now. Of course, in all these decisions, objectors or permit applicants may seek review with VCAT. Item 13.2.5 is the Mansfield District Soccer Association Licence Agreement. The Manager of Planning and Environment is Maya Belvanova. Is our responsible officer for that. And good evening, Ms. Belvanova. Welcome to our meeting tonight. We're discussing item 13.2.5. The purpose is to seek council endorsement to enter into a 1-year licence agreement with 6 months priority use for College Park Field 1 and Field 2, storage shed and clubhouse with no further terms, the Mansfield District Soccer Association. Any councillors, have you got any questions? Ms. Belvanova? Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Belvanova. This has come before council previously and we deferred the decision. Have any material changes happened to this agreement since that time? Or has just further discussions happened with the club in the interim?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, further discussion has been done with the club, very productive discussions, and we have come to the conclusion which is provided in the report.
Thank you very much.
Nothing else?
No.
Councillor Team.
I'd like to move that council endorse the proposal to enter in a licence agreement for the use of the sports and recreational facilities with the Mansfield District Soccer Association for 6 months, priority use with no further terms, with the commencement date on the 1st of July 2024 and the following 3 points below that.
Thanks, Councillor Team. Have I got a seconder to the motion? Councillor Webb. Councillor Team, do you want to speak to the motion?
No, just congratulate the Mansfield District Soccer Association for their tenacity in pursuing a lease with the Shire. It's great. Soccer's a growing game in our Shire, as are all sports, and the use of these facilities is excellent for them. So thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Webb, do you want to speak to it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just to say that it's a good outcome for a fantastic club and I wish them all the best in the future.
Thank you. Any other councillors want to speak to the motion? Does anyone want to speak against the motion? In that case, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? That motion is carried. Item 13.2.6, planning permit application P016/24, 10 Victoria Street, Mansfield. The responsible officer is Ms. Nicole Embling, and I have 2 deputations tonight for this agenda item. I have Ms. Angelina Bell, who's coming in online first, and Ms. Liz Davis, and her deputation will be spoken to us by Ms. Embling. So could we have Ms. Bell please enter? Good evening, Ms. Bell. Steve Raby here, the Mayor. Welcome to our meeting tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Angelina Bell of Bell Legal and Planning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening.
No worries. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm
speaking. Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of the permit applicants for the 3-lot subdivision and 3-dwelling development at 10 Victoria Street in Mansfield. We do speak in support of the officer's recommendation that a notice of decision be issued for this proposal. This type of medium density housing is really important in addressing or going towards addressing the housing shortage throughout Victoria and also within Mansfield Shire more specifically. Medium density housing and housing more generally is best placed in our residential zoned areas of the Shire, and this is within our township areas that offer good access to services, community facilities, and appropriate infrastructure. The advantage with this particular property is its proximity to the town centre, the schools, medical centres and recreational facilities. The development complies with all the requirements of the planning scheme and has addressed the concerns of the neighbours. It's considered the general neighbourhood character of the area, which consists of a wide range of building design and lot configuration. The design of the proposed development strives to maintain the existing character of the immediate area with a single-storey dwelling located at the front of the land and the double-storey dwellings towards the rear, reducing any potential visual impact from the street. The proposed development, it's considered to be consistent with the evolving character of the residential areas of Mansfield, noting that there are recently approved two-storey developments as well as many older double-storey unit developments throughout the town. The proposal, as articulated in the officer report, has met the garden area requirement of the general res zone, the requirements of residential subdivision and residential development in the planning scheme. And the proposal supports orderly planning in the Mansfield Township and will provide much needed housing diversity in the area and in the town. If I've got time, I just wanted to speak really briefly on just a couple of the proposed conditions. Condition 7 for public open space. It's appropriate to actually set an amount at the current rate to provide certainty to the permit applicant. There isn't an amount in the schedule in the to the overlay. However, the Subdivision Act sets it at 5%. The conditions as outlined in the officer report leave it way too open and too vague for the permit applicant. The other condition we just wanted to question was condition 18, which is a requirement to construct a footpath at the frontage of the land. We would just question the utility of constructing a footpath from one boundary to the other where it doesn't actually connect to any other footpaths in the area, and with no, strategies or recommendations for there to be footpath construction in the near future in Victoria Street. So thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Bell. Right on 3 minutes.
Ripper.
Well done. Councillors, have you got any questions, Ms. Bell? Thanks, Ms. Bell. You're welcome to wait in the waiting room till a conclusion of this agenda item. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, the next deputation is by Ms. Liz Davis. It will be read by Nicole, Ms. Embling. Nicole Embling.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Liz Davis wasn't able to attend tonight, so has asked that I read this deputation on her behalf.
Go ahead.
I am asking Mansfield Shire to stop allowing the building of multiple double-storey units on inner town streets for the following reasons. 1. The town has a pleasant rural and historic appeal to residents and visitors alike. It is disappointing for people to come to the high country and find a suburb. There is plenty of new outer area where this type of development is more suitable. 2. The mature trees and gardens in Old Mansfield provide habitat for birds and a cool environment in the hot summer months. The current plans provide no space for large shade trees. 3. There is no viable public transport available, so most residents need 2 cars, at least one being suitable for rough country roads. Off-street parking as well as clear access and egress is necessary as the town streets are already used by Shire employees, teachers and tradespeople. 4. Elderly residents who retire into town find stairs difficult and prefer ground level living. And 5, this proposal of 10 Victoria Street may comply with the letter of the law, but shows no thought for the well-being of residents or the character of the town, the very reason people enjoy living and visiting Mansfield. That is all. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Ms. Embling. Councillors, so I suppose can't have any questions for someone that's not here, but we thank you for the deputation on behalf of Liz Davis, and we have heard. Thank you. Councillors, on the matter of 13.2.6, any questions for the responsible officer?
This, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Ms. Embling, I don't know whether you know the answer to this question, so maybe Ms. Crane may. Where are we at with our pathways and what's it called? Our pathways policy. Footpath. Thank you.
Footpath strategy.
Footpath and shared path strategy. Who can answer that question?
I'm happy.
You're happy?
Through you,
Thank you.
Mr.
Yeah, go.
Council has an adopted footpath and shared path strategy. I don't have it in front of me, but and perhaps one of our officers could have a look for me, but my memory is that there is a path shown in this location. So no, Ms. Crane is shaking her head saying it's not. I thought we had checked that. So
I am unaware, sorry.
you're unaware. Okay, so you're not saying there's not, but I think when we did look at it that there was a path in this location, given its proximity to a school. It is a high foot and bicycle traffic location. So I would expect that the installation of a path along this side of the street would be consistent with the objectives of that strategy, which has been adopted by council.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Councillor Toon.
Yeah, Ms. Emling, just in relation to Ms. Bell's query in regards to public open spaces and clause 5301, I didn't quite understand the reason why she thought it was unfair that whatever rate that council were or whatever percentage council were asking for that contribution. Can you just enlighten me on that?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. So in relation to recommended condition number 7 for public open space, our current planning scheme at clause 5301 does not specify set rates for public open space requirements or contributions. And therefore, at the moment, we do default to the Act, which allows for a maximum contribution for us to ask for 5%. Due to our current strategic planning work, we are in the process of looking to implement our open space strategy, which does set a scale of public open space requirements. So it has become standard practice on our planning permits that have been issued in the past 12 months or so that they include this condition, which then enables us to take the public open space contribution at the time of the payment being made in accordance with our planning scheme. So it is assumed that we will have the public open space strategy implemented into our planning scheme in the near future. And therefore, a development like this most likely would still only be required to contribute the 5% based on the proposed scale. But for more dense developments with higher subdivision lot rates, that proposal is increased.
Okay, so we're not doing anything we haven't done in this situation.
Right.
No. Okay.
Any other questions, councillors?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, I've had a chance to find the footpath and shared path strategy to confirm. Yes, the northern side of Victoria Street is in the strategy as a high priority path for future development.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. I thought that was the case.
I've got a question, Ms. Emling. On page 48 of our agenda, the submitted landscape plan. Could you verbally indicate where the tree, the deciduous tree, or it might be an evergreen tree that's currently there, where that would stand in relation to Unit 1?
Certainly. The existing large tree that stands on the property is near the front. Looking at the plan, the bottom right corner, it is quite close to the front boundary currently. However, my understanding is that the tree would not be able to be retained on the land due to its size. It would actually be too close to the proposed dwelling. The landscaping plan that they have submitted has been assessed quite thoroughly, not just by myself, but by our environment officer. And in relation to the species of trees that they are proposing, mature growth heights, and there is actually residential policy for landscaping and that does recognise when existing trees are to be removed, that they should be replaced. Given the extent of landscaping proposed in this landscaping plan, it is considered that there are actually going to be more plantings on the property than there are now if this landscaping plan was implemented.
Okay, thanks for that. Does a tree actually cover part of next door neighbour's property as well, provide shade in there?
It is quite a large tree. I haven't done that thorough assessment of the adjoining property, as they have a 1.8 metre high colorbond fence on the front boundary of Victoria Street. So when I did my site inspection, I wasn't able to see into that property to see that impact, but given the size of the tree and where it's located in terms of sun and shade, it likely would be providing shade into that yard, which is actually a backyard. The house on that property fronts I don't know the name of that street off the top of my head. It is a corner block.
The little one out the back, yeah.
Yes.
Have you got any idea when it's been part of the delegation that Liz Davis gave was she referred to Old Mansfield. And this is what I understand to be Old Mansfield, Victoria Street. Do you have any idea when that was first subdivided? Would it have been 1858?
I do not have those records. Apologies, Mr. Mayor. I could take that question on notice though and find that out. Sorry.
No, well, it leads me on to, have you got any idea how old that tree might be?
No, sorry, not at all.
Okay.
Once they cut it down, they can count the rings.
Yeah, they can cut the rings. Yeah. Right. There's one other question I have. I don't know whether this is relevant to this application, but does the applicant live in the property at the moment?
Mr. Mayor, apologies again. That's not a question that I'm able to respond to. The permit applicant is Miss Bell on behalf of the landowner, and my dealings have strictly been with her.
Can I have one other question too? Is Ms. Bell said that this fits into affordable livability. So if those units were to be sold, how much would they be worth?
It's a bit unfair.
Are our young people able
but
to
I'm
buy
sorry,
them?
I can't answer that question either. It will be at market value.
Yeah, right. Okay, thanks very much, Ms. Embley. Any other questions, councillors? In that case, Councillor Slater.
Motion is the council issue a notice of decision to grant a permit for planning application P016/24 to allow development of land for 3 dwellings and a 3-lot subdivision on lot 1 on TP 213197C, commonly addressed as 10 Victoria Street, Mansfield, in accordance with the endorsed plans and subject to the following conditions as outlined on pages 57 through to 62
inclusive. Councillors, Councillor Team.
I was just going to second the motion.
Yeah. Councillor Team, would you like to speak to the motion?
What about me?
Oh, sorry,
Well,
councillors.
Yeah. All right. I'll take this one, Councillor Team.
I can, but you know, probably let him since he
As a
proposed
mover
it.
of the motion,
Yes.
Thank you.
look,
Might, yeah.
I agree with the officer's assessment on this one, in terms of the provision of, look, who knows what's affordable housing anymore, but in terms of the mix of housing options that we have here in Mansfield. I think this greatly contributes to that in a very desirable location. Its proximity to Lords and also the primary school, having 3 dwellings there, I think would be a welcome addition. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's it.
Thanks, Councillor Sladen. Councillor Tehan as a seconder.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Being the centre of town and precedent being set for these type of dwellings, then I'm happy to second it. I wish the applicant would look at that tree, though. I feel that sometimes we can just try a little bit harder. We could try a little bit harder to try and fit the development in and maintain some of our big old trees. Obviously, under the planning scheme, it can be gotten rid of, but it would be nice if the applicant had another look at it.
Thanks, Councillor Tehan. Any other councillor want to speak to the motion? Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am in support of this motion. More housing supply is a good thing for our town. We have a huge housing shortage, as does many areas in Australia, Victoria, everywhere else. A good mix of housing is a good thing. And as council are trying to address our housing crisis, there are very few levers we can actually pull. But providing more housing is one of them. So that's why I'm in favour of this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. I'd like to speak to the motion, if I can. I'm not speaking against the motion. I'm speaking for a tree because trees can't speak. So I'm speaking for that tree. And a developer that wants to cut down, quite frankly, more than 100-year-old tree that is a significant tree in old Mansfield should, in my view, try and look at another way to save it. Because if that was a tree that was a gum tree somewhere else in our shire, we'd have to plant 200 trees or pay the climate change, $8 or $10 or $20,000 or whatever that was. So I'm just saying, trees do save our world. They suck in carbon and they give out oxygen. So that's all I'll say. Thanks very much for listening. I'll put the motion to a vote. Councillors, all those in favour of the motion? The motion is passed. It's a big one, that one, wasn't it? Item 13.2.7, which is a 2-lot subdivision in 24 Changi Road, Merrijig. The responsible officer is statutory planner Ms. Claire Wilkinson. So, Ms. Embling, thanks very much for coming in tonight. Are you, Ms. Wilkinson's online? Thank you very much. You're there. I don't know where to look these days in these meetings, here or there. This report seeks council's determination of application P9223 lodged for the subdivision of land in 2 lots. The application is being referred to council for a determination as the proposal received 5 objections, which exceeds the delegation of officers. So welcome, Ms. Wilkinson, and over to you, councillors, if you've got any questions. There, Councillor Tehan.
Yep, there was one. One of the objections was around the proposed turning circle causing headlight issues for the surrounding properties. What are the implications of that? What rules have we got to protect in the planning sense to protect people from having headlights shining into their dwellings?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, typically planning permit conditions are the main mechanism to manage amenity impacts such as a headlight spill or light spill. When looking at an application, we consider things such as the hours that people would be accessing, the number of vehicles that potentially could shed light and cause amenity to residents, and if there's any alternative design layouts in terms of access ways, which might orientate vehicles away from habitable room windows. Those are our primary mechanisms that planning and typically our engineering staff will look at, and we're guided by engineering staff with respect to driveway widths and orientations and functional layout. In this particular application, we've relied on the layout plan, the subdivision layout plan, as has been submitted by council. But we've also explored with the engineering staff the potential for other configurations that might actually serve to reduce headlight impacts. So those are typically the ways in which the council planning staff respond to issues such as those types of amenity impact.
We've got the deputation in.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that response.
No, he's not coming in.
Oh, okay.
Councillors, we had a deputation for this item, but Mr. Burns is not online, so just letting you know. So he's welcome to come in when if he gets online. We'll take it, but we'll just keep going with the agenda item. And councillors, you got any other questions, Councillor Slavin?
Thank you. Ms. Wilkinson, could you please, for my benefit, clarify condition 28, which is on page 75 of the agenda, in relation to the section 173 agreement regarding the defendable space, and I don't quite understand what that means.
Thank you. Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to answer that question. The proposed condition 28 is a stipulation that's been provided to council officers from the Country Fire Authority. So the process of this subdivision, because it's in a bushfire management overlay, required that the applicant prepare a bushfire management statement to show that the site being subdivided can meet bushfire planning requirements. So essentially, to demonstrate that any future single dwelling on that site would be able to meet bushfire planning requirements. As part of their conditions, the CFA have added in the requirement that the applicant put on title a registration of a Section 173 agreement that links the bushfire management plan that's been prepared with this
one
subdivision to that new title in perpetuity. So that then should any future purchaser of that property buy it, they would know from looking at their title that there's a registered Section 173 and that it links specifically to a requirement of the Country Fire Authority as it relates to bushfire planning. The bushfire planning requirements in the Mansfield planning scheme allow for some discretion when should a future application for a dwelling come in, provided that the applicant can clearly demonstrate that they've met what the subdivision anticipated for. So if it went beyond a normal dwelling, they would need to go and get a new assessment done.
All right. Thank you.
Does that clarify?
Yes, it does. Thanks.
Sorry,
Thanks.
through you, Mr. Mayor.
Might I please add to that as well?
So go ahead, Ms. Emily.
Thank you. Just to further clarify, Councillor Sladden, Everything Claire said is absolutely spot on and applicable to proposed lot 2, which is the vacant lot.
Yeah, it's the exclusion that. Yeah.
So condition 28 specifically excludes lot 1, which means that if the existing house on lot 1 wanted to do further additions or rebuild, they would not be exempt. So they would still need to come back through the planning process and get new bushfire reports done. I just want to make sure that was really clear.
Yep. Thank you, Ms. Wilkinson and Ms. Embling. No further questions.
Thanks, councillor Sladen. Any other questions? Just one question, Ms. Wilkinson. It's one of the respondents here was concerned about bins on the road, and I went out and had a look at the property, and I must share that concern with respect to item 13 in the recommendation. How achievable do you think it'd be to get this turning radius in to their property? Was that not our problem, just their problem if it's accepted?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor. The site inspection that council, so planning officers were guided by our on-staff engineer. We both visited the site following the consultative meeting that was held with residents, where this was again raised as a concern, not just related to the subdivision, but in terms of waste management in the broader sense for Chengya Road. We walked the site to review the width of the carriageway easement and the potential for either a Y turnaround or a porthole to determine if the actual width is sufficient to accommodate a truck's turning path, and confirmed that we felt it was. So there are some factors, and I think I've mentioned that in the officer report, that come into consideration. Obviously, a more detailed layout plan prepared by an engineer would be needed.
Yes.
But certainly through the plan that has been submitted by the applicant and the site inspections in situ on the ground, it certainly does seem to be a potential for an improved waste management outcome, not just through this, but now through this planning process. We understand that the residents are really pushing for an improved waste management situation. So that extends beyond just the scope of this planning permit application.
Roger that. Thank you. Thanks. Councillors.
No further questions.
No further questions in that case. Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the motion that council issue a notice of decision to grant a permit for planning permit application P092/23 for a 2-lot subdivision on lot 1, TP 580169, commonly addressed as 24 Changu Road, Merrijig, in accordance with the endorsed plans and subject to the following conditions as listed on tonight's agenda, page 71 through to
76 inclusive.
76 inclusive. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. Have I got a seconder to the motion? Councillor Teen. Councillor Webb is mover. Do you want to speak to the motion?
I will. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Noting the objections that came forth for this particular development, it's a good outcome that as part of this application, as part of this development, they'll be fixing a lot of the existing issues which were brought up during this process. So I think it's actually a fantastic outcome for everyone in the whole little area, to be honest. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. Councillor Teen, as a seconder, do you want to speak to it? Okay, any other councillor want to speak to the motion? Does anyone want to speak against the motion? In that case, I'll put this motion to a vote. All those in favour of the motion. Motion is carried. Very much. Is that it with planning or?
I hope so.
I think so. Planning Department, thanks very much for your attendance this evening. Thank you.
Well done.
And your item 13.3.1 is the media and communications policy. And I'd like to welcome our coordinator, communications, governance and risk, Ms. Tanya Taboni. Welcome. No deputations to this one. Councillors, have you got any questions for Mr. Bone? In that case, there is a recommendation here before us. Councillors, Councillor Webb?
That council endorses the Media and Communications Policy 2024.
Thank you. Have I got a seconder to the motion? Councillor Slatton? Councillor Webb is moved. Do you want to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Slatton, do you want to speak?
No, thank you.
Does anyone else want to speak to the motion? Does any councillor want to speak against the motion? Okay, so I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Don't you have another one?
Ms. Timone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's Ms. Young.
Item 13.3.2 is the public transparency policy, and the responsible officer is governance and risk officer, Ms. Chelsea Young. Welcome.
Thank you.
Ms. Young. Councillors, have you got any questions, Ms. Young? In that case, councillors, there's a recommendation before you. Councillor Tehan.
Council endorses the Public Transparency Policy 2024.
Thank you. As seconder, I think that was Councillor Webb, got his hand up.
Not a problem.
Doing all the heavy lifting tonight, Paul. So, councillors, do you want to speak to the policy, to the motion, against the motion? Put the motion to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Item 13.3.3 S11A Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation Planning and Environment Act 1987. The responsible officer is again Ms. Young. This is to seek endorsement of the revised S11A Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation. Councillors, got any questions? There's a recommendation. Councillor Slatton?
Yeah. The motion is the council revoke the existing Schedule 11A Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation Planning Environment Act 1987, previously endorsed by council on the 16th of March 2021. Endorsed the Schedule 11A Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation Planning Environment Act 1987, dated 20th of August 24. Approves Mayor Councillor Steve Raby to sign, and Deputy Mayor Councillor Mark Holcomb to witness the signing of the Schedule 11A Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation Planning and Environment Act 1987.
Thank you. Does anyone want to speak to the motion? Against the motion?
I'd like to
It's
second.
just procedural,
It's procedural.
given the advice from our legal firm Maddox, just needs updating.
Thanks.
That's my
Councillor
understanding. Is that right?
All those in favour of the motion?
We need a second.
We need a second.
Oh, you
I thought Rowan seconded it. Sorry, Rowan, you had your hand up. Are you happy to second the motion?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
I wrote you down here as being seconder. My apologies. All those in favour of the motion?
Oh, can't they? Oh.
The motion is carried. Let's take more. 13.4.1 is the volunteer policy, and our responsible officer is the Executive Manager, Community Health and Wellbeing Ms. Nola Cleland, and good evening and welcome, Nola.
Thank you.
Tonight. The purpose is to seek council endorsement for the revised volunteers policy, which is another procedural matter. Councillors, have you got any questions? Well, we do have a recommendation before you. Councillor Webb.
The council endorses the volunteers policy 2024.
Thank you. And Councillor Tian, I saw you put your hand up. Are you happy to second it? Does anyone want to speak to that motion? Against the motion?
It's just a pity that nobody volunteered to comment on when it was out on public notice. That's a comment, not a question.
There's a comment. Okay, those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thanks for hanging around.
Normally going to stay on. 13.4.2 Ovens Murray Child and Family Services Alliance MOU. The purpose of this is to present the 2024 Ovens Murray Child and Family Services Alliance Memorandum of Understanding to Council for endorsement to execute the MOU. So, councillors, have you got any questions on this? That leads me to the next question. Is a recommendation before you. Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Motion being that council endorses execution of the 2024 Memorandum of Understanding with the Ovens Murray Child and Family Services Alliance.
Thank you for moving that motion. Councillor Webb, have I got a seconder to the motion? Councillor Sladen. Councillor Webb, do you want to speak to the motion?
Just to say these are extremely important services for our community, and it's a good idea to keep them going. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Sladen, do you want to speak to the motion?
Oh, well, I just hope that they do remember where Mansfield is.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to the motion or against the motion? In that case, I'll put this motion to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. 13.4.3 Council Plan Actions 2023-24, the report. Ms. Cleland, you're the responsible officer. The purpose of this report is to inform councillors on progress made against the council plan 2021 to 2025. Actions for the 23-24 financial year. Councillors, have you got any questions, Ms. Nola Cleland? Does anyone want to move a motion? Councillor Tian.
I'd like to move that council accepts the council plan 2021-2025 end of financial year report for 2023-24.
Thanks for moving the motion, Councillor Tian. And our seconder is Councillor Sladen. Councillor Tian, do you want to speak to the motion?
Only to say that it's great that this report that's been done is very thorough, and it's good because it keeps all councillors on their toes. We set a plan at the start of this term, and it's really good that we're reminded of what that is, and that we are following it. And it's good to see we are following it.
Yeah. Councillor Sladen?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Tian, and I'm particularly pleased to see the attention being given by Ms. Cleland and her team in working with the Mansfield District Hospital in encouraging the continued service through the hospital for our previous home and community care services. Thank you.
Councillors, anyone else want to speak? Councillor Webb.
Just to thank Ms. Cleland and her team for a extremely thorough report. I really enjoyed reading this one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Hang on, we haven't voted yet.
I was trying to make it.
Nola wants to get out of here. Councillors, could we vote on the motion for the motion? Against the motion? The motion is carried. Ms. Cleveland, thanks very much for your attendance. Been very patient, thanks. On this one, what's the right? This is acknowledgement. Oh, this is it. Yeah.
Now, 13.
Agenda item 13.5.1, the acknowledgement of traditional custodians of land policy, and the responsible officer is our Chief Executive Officer, Kirsten Alexander. The purpose is to seek council endorsement of the revised acknowledgement of traditional custodians of land policy. Councillors, any questions to the CEO? No questions. There is a recommendation put before you, councillors. Councillor Tehan.
Yeah. I'd like to move that council endorses the acknowledgement of traditional custodians of the land policy 2024.
Thanks. And Councillor Webb, did you have your hand up for seconder? Councillor Webb is seconding. Councillor Tehan, you're the mover of the motion. Do you want to speak to it?
Yes, I'd like to just acknowledge all the people who submitted to this policy. It generated a lot of interest and a lot of submitters, and it was there was an incredibly diverse range of views about the policy. But at the end of the day, I think it's landed in a pretty good spot. I know there was quite a bit of objection about the removal of ownership of the land, but I know if you speak to First Nations people, they will tell you that they never owned the land anyway. They don't believe in ownership, and they are just looking after the land. So I also feel that the acknowledgement that we read at the start of each council meeting is a good acknowledgement now, and it actually recognises everyone in this as well. And it doesn't detract, I don't believe, from the purpose of it, that being it was designed for the local custodians. I think it still supports them and what they did in their history, but I also believe that it acknowledges everyone else in the Shire who have contributed to this being the place that it is. So thanks for everyone who did contribute.
Thanks, Councillor Tehan. Councillor Webb, do you want to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other councillor want to speak to the motion?
I'd like to speak against the motion.
Oh,
well, when you're ready.
For.
No, I don't want to speak for it.
Well, I'd like to speak for the motion.
You go.
I'm glad that we landed in a respectful and considered way. This went to Tangrong first as a motion of respect from us to get their input before it went out to the community. I'm glad that we're acknowledging our First Nations people as being the people that were here first. And I think this statement that we've come to will have more clout than just a long diatribe. So I'm glad to support the motion. So I'd like to speak against the motion, Councillor Slaughter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, in the year 2024, I just find it unfathomable that we are even discussing this. In the interest of transparency, this first came before council back in June, just after Reconciliation Week. It then had a further discussion in a council briefing in July, which was during NAIDOC week. Thankfully, the council staff did not put this out for public comment during NAIDOC week, but held off until after that. Councillor Tehan says he'd like to thank all those who submitted, of which there are a total of 33, of which 21 were anonymous. Looking at the councillor's report, the number of people who disagree with this proposal is more than those that agree. The policy as it is, I believe, should remain. I cannot support this policy given that the acknowledgement, and I'm talking about the acknowledgement of country here, not the welcome to country. There seem to be many people, mainly the misinformed on Facebook and social media, who don't know the difference between an acknowledgement of country and a welcome to country. The acknowledgement of country where we delete words that mean a lot to First Nations people, and the addition of all members of our community, it does dilute the purpose. Despite what Councillor Tehan says, that does dilute the purpose of the acknowledgement. Again, as the Mayor stated, this did go to Taungurung, and Taungurung did not agree with the wording that is included in this policy. The wording that the Taungurung put forward has been ignored and is not what I believe that a council in 2024 should be changing. That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sladden. Councillor Tehan, as the mover of the motion, you get a right of reply. Do you want to cut that right?
No, I've stated what I believe. I don't need to comment on Councillor Sladden's
Thank
comments.
you. I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? And all those against the motion? Okay, so
I call for a division, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, we can have a division.
I've called for one.
Yep, we'll have a division.
Sorry, I think you need to vote on it.
We just did, and it's
Just did.
2-2.
Yeah, but you need to say whether you've got a casting vote on it.
Yeah, well, I do have a casting vote.
Yeah,
No.
so before you call.
So I'm using my
Beg your pardon.
casting vote
Yeah.
to move the motion, to pass the motion. Thanks.
And then
Now,
Can we have the division? Yes,
now we can have the
please.
division.
Thank you.
Madam CEO. You take over for the division.
No,
No, you do.
You just asked.
Yeah, I just asked.
You just get it on record. Yeah. So those.
So for everyone out there looking in, a division means that the councillors that voted for and against will be recognised on that motion.
So you just need to ask for it again.
Yep, so we'll have a division.
Yes. And
Would you like me to raise my hand again?
Yes,
Yes,
you'd like
in
it, all
favour.
those in favour of the
Yeah.
motion,
Just in case you can't cover
Yeah.
everyone. Yeah, there you go.
and all those against the motion. And the mayor's using his right as a to cast the final vote. Thank you. Item 14 is the council meeting resolutions actions station status register. This report presents to council the Mansfield Shire Council meeting resolutions action stations register. Councillors? Councillor Tehan?
I'll move that council receive and note the Mansfield Shire Council meeting resolution action status register as at the 14th of August 2024.
Thank you. Seconder is Councillor Red. And all those in favour of the motion? Thank you. Motion is passed. Advisory and Special Committee nil, authorisation nil, closure of the meeting to the members of the public for a confidential report. So a recommendation. Councillor Webb?
The council closed the meeting.
Thanks, John.
Public under section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider confidential reports in accordance with section 66(2) of the Local Government Act 2020 for the reasons set out in section 18 below.
Thank you. Have we got a seconder? Thanks. All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. We will go to close the meeting, ladies and gentlemen, and go to a confidential breakout room, and we'll be back later to tell you what happened and what we voted on in the confidential meeting. Thank you. Ooh. Good evening again, everyone. Thanks for waiting if you have. We had a confidential meeting where we were in the waiting room, and I have a delight to inform you all that awards for lump sum contract for resheeting program to Alpine Civil was awarded for $566,662.83 ex GST with a 5% construction contingency. Item 18.2 was a reseal preparation contract, and that was awarded to a company called Build Infrastructure Proprietary Limited for $367,184 ex GST with a 10% construction contingency amount. Item 18.3 was the reseal program 24-25. So our resealing our roads. And that was awarded to Boral for the amount of $485,503 ex GST. That's for the 24-25 resealing program. It had a 10% construction contingency allowed with that. Also, item 18.4, which was a quarry supply panel, and that's to approve a panel to supply quarry products for the Shire. There's Alpine Civil, Mawson's, Exton's, Lawrence Brothers, Lima South Prestige and West Paps were awarded that panel. You can read about that when our meetings have been formalised, probably tomorrow or the next day. And 18.5 was the tender award for data migration for our project Cody. That was awarded to Pace Setter Services for $418,680 ex GST. So that's good news. We're awarding these contracts and getting into more work and getting things done. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for watching tonight. And my fellow councillors, thank you for your attendance at the council meeting, the officers that attended and all the officers at home. Thanks for watching and good night. Safe driving.